Hello out there. My name's David Horton, and I'm proud to be one of the pastors at St. Luke's Methodist here in Houston. Thanks for joining me today. Friends, let me ask you something. Confession time. Are you a people pleaser? Are you a people pleaser? Because I am captain of the people-pleasing club. I do yearn for people's approval. Approval is my idol. It's my idol. Whenever the Bible talks about idolatry, really just think of things that you measure your worth by. An idol is what you measure your worth by. You tell me what you measure your worth by, and I'll tell you what you worship. You tell me what you measure your worth by, I'll tell you what your God is. Approval is one of my many idols. It's one of my many gods, I guess, instead of the one true God. Hear now this word from 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. You yourselves know, brothers and sisters, that our coming to you was not in vain. But though we had already suffered and been shamefully maltreated at Philippi, as you know, we had courage in our God to declare to you the gospel of God in spite of great opposition. For our appeal does not spring from deceit or impure motives or trickery, but just as we have been approved by God to be entrusted with the message of the gospel, even so we speak, not to please mortals, but to please God, who tests our hearts. This Wednesday, I recorded the sermon at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, like I've been doing for the past, 8 months or so. And by 3:30, I was already in the hospital to make a hospital visit. Actually, it was my first hospital in 8 months. I finally got in to see somebody. I really missed it. When I was walking into the hospital, I confess I was still repeating the same thought pattern that really always goes through my head when I preach to a camera. It goes something like this. Will they like this? Did this work? Did this connect with anybody? Will they like anything I just said? Will they like it at all? Which is the same thing as asking, will they like me? Will they like me? Whenever I've been preaching to a camera in the pandemic, I don't get the kind of instant feedback that I'm used to getting on Sundays when I preach to warm bodies, right? You can tell, a preacher can tell when you're preaching to warm bodies on a Sunday if the sermon's clicking or not. It just shows up in people's body. It shows up in people's body language. You can't hide it. Trust me, we can tell, right? But you don't get that preaching to the camera. And so as I was walking into that hospital after recording the sermon, yet again in the pandemic, preaching to a camera, I'm going, did they like this? Are they going to like this? Any at all? Are they going to like me? I walked into the hospital room of a 95-year-old woman. She's a church member of mine, Miss Edna. I hadn't seen Miss Edna in 8 months. I had missed her. And she had a lot to say. She had a lot of questions for me. She didn't have COVID. She has pneumonia, though. She asked about how the church is. How's the church doing? And I said, we're holding up. We're doing okay. She asked me when we're going to get through this pandemic. Are we ever going to get past this? And I said, I hope so. She asked about my family. I showed her a picture of my sweet 3-year-old daughter. I asked about her family, the basic chit-chat. And I was about to leave, a standard hospital visit. And then she said, well, what do Methodists believe about the afterlife? Here's what she really wanted to know. She wanted to know, do we recognize people in heaven? And do they recognize us? See, usually those are pretty theological questions without much meat to them, not very practical. All of a sudden, these had become very practical for her. She told me that she had just lost her daughter this past January. And she really wanted to know if, when she goes to heaven, will she recognize her daughter? And will her daughter know her? And I told her, yes, we do believe that when we do go to heaven, we will recognize people, and they'll recognize us. When we die, it's like going to sleep, and then you wake up, and it'll be great. It'll be like a family reunion that never ends, and God is right there in the middle of it. In fact, I told her, think of heaven like this. It really is like one big family reunion. And she said, I'd like that. And I have to admit, as I was leaving her bedroom, leaving her hospital room, I thought, well, I felt some kind of approval. I felt a sense of approval, but it wasn't her approval, and it didn't come from people. I really felt God's approval in that moment. It felt like I hadn't pleased mortals, but I had pleased God. I felt like something about that bedside chat really did please God. I've got a friend who talks about things, and I love this line. He talks about things that make God smile. Things that make God smile. What are the things that make God smile? Not people, God. Here's my challenge for you, my invitation for you this week. What can you do this week that will make God smile? We already have God's heart. You don't have to work for that. That's the gospel. But we can work for God's smile. May we never, ever work for the applause of mortals, but may we always, always work for what makes God smile. God bless you.